Welcome back to Casual Retro Gamer. This week I thought we'd take a break from the retro computers to instead have a look at a classic handheld console. I am perhaps inappropriately dressed though, because the console we're going to be looking at is the classic Nintendo Game Boy. This little machine has had a bit of a rough life. As you can see, the screen sort of falls off. But today we're going to tear it down. We're going to give it a thorough clean. We'll fit some nice new capacitors. And we'll even have a go at a white backlit screen mod. First things first though, let's get this apart. So just before we do actually open it up, just let me show you that this wee machine does still work. The sound though on it is a little bit dull. I mean, that's it turned up full now, and you'll hear in a second that it's not particularly loud. I would put that down though to failing capacitors, but we are going to change them all. Right, let's get it apart. And before the keyboard warriors come crying, yes, I am mixing different types of batteries. The humanity. Right, we're going to need a tri-wing screwdriver to get into this thing. I have never had one of these apart before. Is that the tri-wing? That's a tri-wing. Okay, so there appears to be a ribbon cable going between this board on the back and this board on the front. See if this will just pull out. Yep. Ooh, nasty. Some corrosion down here. I don't think it's coming from any capacitors though. It looks like it's possibly came from leaky batteries at one point. So we will have to take all this apart for cleaning. Let's see about getting this board out. Now that we're inside, we can just go to a normal star screwdriver. All those wee screws seem to be the same length anyway, so internal it's all stars and external it's all the tri-wings. So that's obviously our wee motherboard. CPU, not 100% sure what the other chips are now, but very compact design, isn't it? 1989 Nintendo. 31 years old. I think it's overdue a bit of love. Right, let's see about getting this out. Okay, I think that's all the screws. Oh, no, missed one. There we are. So you can see a little bit of something here on the screen. I'm hoping this is just a little bit of moisture or something has got underneath the existing back sort of filament here, if you want to call it that, which we're going to be replacing anyway. So hopefully that will fix that wee issue. Okay, first things first though, I want to give all this a really good clean. So I'm going to take all these bits of plastic in the house, give them a good wash, then we'll be back to start the recapping. Our case is nice and clean now. let's do a bit of recapping on the board, and we'll start with the CPU board. Right, this is the capacitors we need. Let's get stuck in. That's handy. They've even went to the trouble of writing the figures for these capacitors on the wee motherboard. So C1 100U 10 volt. So that's all the capacitors replaced. The ones on the screen board here were a bit more tricky, especially when working in and around the screen itself. Unfortunately, we caused a little bit of damage here, but oh well, it's happened now. These ones on the back, that was originally these wee tiny fellas, but the replacements they give you are quite big, as you can see. Now, those ones there are all connected in and around here, but you can't actually remove this screen to get at those pads underneath. You'd have to desolder this ribbon, and there's also another ribbon up in here that we will see in a minute when we're going to have a look at the underside of this. So instead of trying to force this out of the way, all I did was cut the legs on this side and then soldered the new capacitors onto the existing legs. They're well on there though, so looks a bit ugly, but it'll work. Out of all the capacitors we did replace, there was one of them that was leaking quite badly on this wee DC converter board here. It actually had, when I tried to desolder it, it actually lifted this pad here. The amount of corrosion down here was actually fairly significant, so I wound up just scratching a wee bit of the trace back here and soldered the leg of the capacitor onto that. Again, it'll be fine, not the prettiest, but it'll work. Our headphone jack, I have removed it and tried to tidy up the corrosion as best as possible. It's currently having a little bath in white vinegar here and try and eat off all of that manky corrosion inside it. You can see it bubbling there. Well, I don't probably not be able to make it out on the camera, but there's wee small bubbles coming off it, and there is bits of grit lying in the bottom of our little egg cup here. So we'll give it a bath in white vinegar for a while, and then we'll clean that out, replace it with IPA, and hopefully that will, well, not fully restore it, but get it back to working operation anyway. But now for the tricky bit, the screen. So I have been doing my homework in between times here, and these wee bits here that I thought was maybe like some sort of water ingress or something is most definitely not. This here is actually LCD rot, or LCD cancer as some people call it. Effectively it's the liquid crystals breaking down. There is nothing you can do about it. There's nothing I can do to fix it other than replace the screen. Now it's just at the very perimeter, and with the bezel in place you can't really see it. So we'll crack on for now, but this screen will probably need replaced at some point in the future, which will mean either getting another Game Boy to rub it out of, or going for one of the new IPS alternative screens. But as I say, for now we'll crack on with this one. So our screen kit, or our backlight kit, should I say. We have the wee bi-inverter module to fit. But I think the first thing we'll do is try to get the backlight in. And we also need to get this polarizer in. But first of all, we need to get the existing polarizer off the back of this. This is the bit I'm not looking forward to. So we need to remove these two small screws here. Then we need to try and get the LCD out of here without breaking it. There's that other ribbon cable I was telling you about, so you can't really get this out much more than this. And what we need to do is remove this from the back of the LCD. This existing polarizer here is glued on to the LCD. So the only way to do this really is to try and pick off the corner with a knife. Make sure you get all the layers of this, because there are several layers in here, and then peel it off. Now, this is the first time I've done this, and just because it is so tricky, I'm just going to go ahead and try and do this off camera. Wish me luck. Well, it came off, but talk about nerve-wracking. So all I did really was take the knife and try to cut underneath this layer. This layer is well and truly on the back of that screen. This came off first and I thought that was it, but how can it be, because that's clear. Then I thought maybe it's just this silver bit, but no. Well, all I can say is I don't really fancy doing it ever again. The amount of pressure cutting into the screen, I thought I was going to snap the LCD, but it's off now. As you can see, the LCD is clear. That's what we want. So let's get our backlight in. Okay, we need to put this polarizer in. Now, this can go two different ways. So if you have a look at this against the screen, the way it looks sort of clear. And then when I turn it that way, it looks dark. Because we are using the bivert mod, you need to install this so that it looks clear, so that way up. There is a protective film on this though, so let's try and get that off. Both sides. And that should be it. Right, we need to get power to our backlight, which we're just going to tap off this capacitor. These leads are a little long, so I'm just going to cut them down the size a bit. Okay, that should be good. Let's find our two small screws, put them back in here on this ribbon. I'm just going to poke these two wires here up beyond that screw, just to make sure it stays away from the D-pad. Last thing to do then is to install this. So it goes on here somewhere. I think it's between pins 6 and 7, is it? Yeah, those two pins there. So we need to lift those two pins. So that is the two pins lifted. So all I did was just heat them up. And while heating them, go in underneath with the knife and just slowly lift them. do be 100% sure that they are fully lifted and not still connected, like back in here or something. So get them well up out of the way and just inspect underneath that they are no longer connected to the board. This little fella then just sits in like so. Then you need to melt a lot of solder into these 4 spots here, and at this point here to connect the 2 pins you've lifted onto these 2 points here. I almost forgot their little headphone jack. I cleaned up not too bad between the white vinegar, IPA bath, and a bit of a going over with the wire brush. There still is quite a bit of corrosion inside it though that I just cannot get to. Well, we probably will wind up having to source a replacement for this at some point, but it's the best I can get it for now. Let's just get it installed again. Right, only one last thing to do. Let's get this Game Boy back together. Oh, we've got a problem. These capacitors are stopping it. Let's just broke a leg off that one. I'll have to fix that. Please go together. Those caps are stopping it. That's some kit, that is. Supplies you with capacitors that are too bloody big. Well, that's good. What am I going to do now? So I'm going to have to source thinner capacitors for that point. What we'll do is we'll just put a couple of screws in, not put them in the whole way. Just to hold it. You can see how much it's deflecting. This is ridiculous. Not happy. So everything was going so well. Well, at least this will let us test it. One last thing to do. Let's get our new screen protector on. Right, I think we should put some batteries in. Well, screen lit up, nice. It's looking good. Can't see that damage up in there though. But I mean, straight on. Well, you can't really see it. You can see a wee bit here. Not bad though. Right, where's my game? Tetris. Uh-huh. We're not getting anything. Right, let me have a wee think about why this isn't working. Well, after several hours of faffing about with this thing, taking it to absolute bits again, playing around with the polarizer, playing around with all the solder connections that we had made, it turned out I had the contrast too high. Talk about idiot. It's working nicely. Now, I did have that polarizer in the wrong orientation, but we've got that sorted now as well. And doesn't it look good? If I had to make one comment about this bi-vert kit that I bought, I think the backlight is a little too bright. So I may take it apart again at some point in the future and fit a wee resistor in there. So you can see it's bleeding through a wee bit just in this corner here. You can see the LEDs there. But I mean, other than that, it's fantastic, isn't it? The difference it makes is absolutely astounding. It's just a shame we have this damage on the LCD up here, but there is literally nothing I can do about it, so it is what it is, I'm afraid. Well, that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed what you've seen, I would appreciate a big thumbs up, as it does really help the channel. Why not subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content? And I'll see you next time.